brother?
Yeah, I'm going live now.
Okay.
Greetings, assalamu alaikum, peace and blessing to the family. Welcome once again to Live with Minister Jabbar Wakil, Los Angeles minister. Welcome to Muhammad Speaks news channel again as we do continue this series of our weekly lives. I am your opening speaker, opening up for Minister Jabbar Wakil. I am Brother Shahid Ali, live in Mombasa, Kenya. Assalamu
All right.
alaikum to the family. Yes, sir. Okay. So just wanted to pass the greeting goes on to the family. Shout out to everyone in the chat and everyone who is watching or will be watching the recording. There are many things coming up for the Muhammad Speaks news channel and many things going on in the world. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe our videos as we will be uploading many videos to the channel. We completed this week a recent series with Muhammad Ali on the Muhammad Speaks channel, as he is one of the legends of the Lost Foundation of Islam, the great boxer under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, some whom say is the greatest of all time. Please make sure you check out his interview, Wake Up and Apologize, and his 1968 video. And check out some of the ministers of the Lost Foundation of Islam, who we have also uploaded, to include Minister Omar, as well as Minister Ahmed, and Minister Dewan Madyoun, and peace and blessings and peace be upon Minister Malik Al Akram. We found a jewel there, and I think I may have mentioned it last week that that was an event that he had done in Boston while he was the minister there. Salute to all the believers. I know this is a hectic and chaotic time, so please keep your head up. Stay strong. Stay studied. Stay fasted.
Recording in progress.
Stay prayed up, as people say. But do everything you can to stay strong, because there are many trials out there for us. There are many things out there that are challenging us. So please do whatever you can to make sure you stay with the spiritual armor to be able to navigate these crazy times. I mean, we have the election coming up in a few days, and I frankly don't know who could possibly win. Things have been so crazy, there's not even a likely winner. There's not even an outcome that you can predict that will actually come forward. So until we actually see the results of the election, and no matter who the winner is, it can still be hectic because this election cycle has been very polarizing. I don't think in my almost 50 years born in the United States have I ever seen America so divided and polarized. So please, no matter what comes down the pipe, Muslims, stay hardy, stay strong. I take the quote from 12 Years a Slave, Solomon Northup, who, one of my favorite lines is he's talking to the woman who is weeping for her child, and he's telling her to stop weeping, and she's weeping for days and days for her children. And she confronts him and says to the effect, don't you weep for your children? And he says, I'm a fighter. I will keep myself hardy until the opportunity until freedom is opportune. And these are the days that we must keep ourselves whole and hearty. As I talk to believers around the nation, we fear and we hear the many trials and tribulations. And we are tried once a year. So these are the things that we must do in order to stay strong. The Honorable Silas Muhammad has armed us. So if we have any guests that are listening, I just wanted to direct that directly to the believers to stay strong. And for those of you out there who are not believers, who we call believers as registered Muslims in the Lost Foundation of Islam, we are the Lost Foundation of Islam under the leadership of the Most Honorable Silas Muhammad. And in our nation, he is the successor to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The Lost Foundation of Islam is akin to Noah's Ark, as we are in a flood, what they call a ball of confusion out here. And the safest place, the sanest place, is in the Lost Foundation of Islam and the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the teachings of the Honorable Silas Muhammad. We are grateful that they are in our presence, as these teachings teach you the knowledge of God, the knowledge of self, and the knowledge of all things in the universe. It's particularly in these days and times we hear about the right foods and the wrong foods. And we're hearing ever increasingly that in America, the wrong foods are being sold to the people, especially in those positions under the guise of healthy food. We are hearing and in the belief that many foods that are branded as healthy are not healthy. And within the Lost Foundation of Islam, you are taught the right kind of food to eat, and how to eat to live. And we also have on this channel the full audio book of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, book 1 and 2 of How to Eat to Live. So please check that out. We have all of the Messenger's books on here. The audio books, Message to the Black Man, Fall of America, Our Savior Has Arrived. We also have The Theology of Time, the entire series broken out in 2 parts. And in October, on October 7th, the date of the Messenger Muhammad's birthday, we produced 4 videos that talks about the times we are living in. Time of great confusion. This is a great day, and it's also a dreadful day. And we see that as a result of the time that we're living in and in the great confusion, people don't know which direction to look into. There seems to be no peace anywhere on earth for anyone. We see great wars everywhere. We see the conflict with Ukraine and Russia. We see the conflict between Israel and Palestine, Israel and Hezbollah, Israel and Lebanon, Russia. Now North Korea is getting things involved. There are proxy wars breaking out all over the place. There's a terrible civil war going on in Sudan that most people are not talking about, but a horrible civil war. And as Dr. King said, injustice to anyone anywhere is injustice to everyone everywhere. That you will feel the ramifications of all these conflicts no matter where you are in your little part of the earth. You will ultimately feel it, because this world, they call it a globalist world. It's also tied economically as if it were a web. There are links in the chain, the supply chain, that a small conflict in a village somewhere in Cambodia can impact someone somewhere in Louisville, Kentucky, because many of the things we have, these cell phones, many of the components. There are about 1,000 different components in your cell phone that come from about 100 different countries, and they have to mine these things in certain places. And if a conflict breaks out in any one of those countries where any parts of these cell phones that are provided to you, that breaks down the supply chain for the construction or the designing or manufacturing of these phones, any devices, whether it be telecommunications, whether it be electronics. So everything is interconnected. And I'm saying all that to say that everything is so interconnected and our lives really depend on these things every day, whereas 20 years ago, we didn't depend on these things. Now we do depend on these things for our daily bread, just to be able to communicate with each other. That any breakdown anywhere can cause issues where you are, no matter what. So it's always important to stay on top of these conflicts that are going on all around the world and know exactly how they impact you directly. If something is going on in Asheville, North Carolina, and I want to point to you last week's video, pardon me, 2 weeks ago, where we had Minister Musa Fordan, who is a first-hand witness of the aftermath of both hurricanes that came through Asheville, North Carolina. And we hear subsequent to that there's more devastation that is coming that way. So, Minister, we might be due for another follow-up with Minister Musa, because we hear that the aftermath of those events, there have been worse things that have been happening to the people in that area. But if you're in Asheville, North Carolina, there's going to be impacts to you everywhere around the world. So in Muhammad Speaks News, the goal is to ultimately we will be able to bring you the news from all over the black world and how these things impact you in order to be able to give you the best information so you can make the best decisions for yourself as black people. This has been the legacy of the Muhammad Speaks newspaper, and it's the goal to be able to bring you that once again, in addition to letting you know the time we are living in. It's a very serious time, and we don't want to harp on that, but we do want to make sure that we stay abreast of these things. In addition to that, we do have a website, MuhammadSpeaksNews.com. MuhammadSpeaksNews.com. We see most of on our platforms. You'll see the content that's posted on our social media will ultimately be posted on our website, MuhammadSpeaksNews.com. We have a blog. We will be offering subscriptions as well as some advertising opportunities going forward. And look forward within the next few weeks or so, we will be rolling out the Muhammad Speaks News app. We're very excited about that, in addition to being able to offer subscriptions. So please, this is your newspaper. Please send us suggestions at muhammadspeaksnews@gmail.com. Again, that's muhammadspeaksnews@gmail.com. Send us your suggestions. Send us your recommendations. Send us your articles. Let us know. This is your newspaper. Make that contribution to Muhammad Speaks. We also have a donation. If you go to the homepage on this YouTube channel that you're watching it from, please make a donation, even if it's a cup of coffee for our editor, who is doing a splendid job. Shout out to Madam Rashana Kareem, doing a great job. Shout out to Associate Editor, Captain Hazik Shabazz. They're doing a splendid job, and look forward to a new issue of the paper copy of the Muhammad Speaks coming out very soon. So exciting times coming up for Muhammad Speaks, and the ultimate original salute to our leader and teacher and guide, the Most Honorable Silas Muhammad, for providing us this opportunity and keeping the memory of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad alive, and this great product in Muhammad Speaks, which is a legacy. It's our inheritance. And we should definitely look to enhance that inheritance and add on to what we were inherited from them and make it even better and add more value to it for the next generation so they can add their value to it. This is our vehicle, and this is something we take pride in. And to quote the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, this is the Muhammad is the name of God himself, one who is worthy of praise. So salute to the family. Once again, I am your dear brother, Shahid Ali. And again, we have that I'm not your speaker. I am opening up for Minister Jabbar Wakil. And before I bring him up again, I want to encourage you, please. We're having a drive to we're marching to 500 subscribers, so we'll be able to monetize and provide additional value. And the more we're able to monetize, the more we're able to grow, the more of the content we'll be able to bring to you. I am currently the digital communications director for the newspaper. It's a labor of love. I'm grateful to be part of the team. So most of that which you see on the channel are things that I've loaded to the channel. We do have a Facebook page at Muhammad Speaks News, where we have 2,000 subscribers. Trying to migrate them over to the YouTube channel. We have an Instagram page, and we'll be working on a TikTok as well as a Twitter. The goal is to be able to bring you news 24 hours a day, 7 days a week about the black world. What Al Jazeera does for the Arab world, we want to do for the black world, whether in North America, South America, Central America, the Caribbean, Africa, or Europe. If you're black, we want to report the news that is mostly for all original people around the world, because we believe in self-determination of all people as much as we believe in self-determination for ourselves. And also, if we have our partner channel, the National Reparations Convention channel on YouTube, which is the channel of the Afro-Descendant Nation. There will be a special live stream where our very own Minister Jabbar Wakil will be part of the all-day election day live stream. So please check in on that one. We want to support Minister Jabbar Wakil. We want to support the Afro-Descendant Nation and Muhammad Speaks newspaper. So our Minister Jabbar Wakil will be on that live stream, and subscribe to that channel, and participate and go to our website for the Afro-Descendant Nation, afrodescendant.org. The Afro-Descendant Nation was born out of the Lost Foundation of Islam through efforts of our leader and teacher, the Honorable Salis Muhammad, and his wife, attorney Harriet Abu Bakr, and efforts of Madam Ida Hakim that started over 30 years ago in an effort to seek reparations for, at that time, so-called African Americans. And subsequent to that, during their work, we had to identify ourselves, and Afro-Descendant, out of all of those meetings, I think it was 10 years in, Afro-Descendant was the identity in which we were described, and which is our identity on the international stage. And thus, in order for us to be able to proliferate that identity and get people to recognize themselves who fall under the classification of Afro-Descendant, the Afro-Descendant Nation was created in order to be able to establish a governing body, because we do believe in self-determination. Not only do we believe in self-determination, we believe in exercising our right to self-determination. And as self-determination is not a plea, it's something that must be exercised daily by each Afro-Descendant and as a nation collectively and collaboratively. So with that said, I am going to stop there. I thank you for bearing with me and taking the time to listen to me. Again, I'm just here to warm you up for Minister Jabbar Wakil. So with that said, there he is. With that smile, thank you, sir, for allowing me to open up for the family. And with that said, I am going to close out. Minister, I'm going to hand it over to you. As I found you, I will leave you in the greeting words of peace. Assalamu alaikum, family.
Thank you, Brother Shahid. I do appreciate your assistance each week and helping me with this um, presentation. Assalamu alaikum to you who are tuned in and watching this. We do appreciate your support. We appreciate you taking time to view these presentations that we are presenting. We believe, and believe really isn't a strong enough word. We know that we have information that is vital for our success and survival as a people. And I frequently ponder over the question, what is it that I can say or do, or how, in what way can I be of service to Black people in the United States of America who are descendant from plantation slavery, now rapidly recognizing themselves under the nationality Afro-descendant. I really got involved with preparing a presentation for you today. And in my preparation, I was interrupted, my spirit was interrupted, and I never got back on the course. So I'm going to cover elements of what I was planning and some other things as well. As brother said, there are more repercussions of the storms that have been plaguing America in recent weeks and months. And I do have that on plan for you today. I had an experience this week that had some historical significance. I want to talk about that. But mostly I want to talk about with you today the fall of America. America is that great mystery Babylon that our Bibles have been telling us about for years. Revelations 18, verse 2. And he cried out mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen. No, is falling, as in past tense, not falling, is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils and the hold of every foul and spirit and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Now you have to understand that when it says the foul, the cage of every foul and unclean bird, it's not talking about actual birds with feathers flying. It's analogous of human beings, the different quality of people who come and settle in America. I remember many years ago, the Honorable Silas Muhammad gave a lecture, or pardon me, wrote a Muhammad Speaks article entitled The Aim of America. And in that was emphasis placed on the caliber of people who come here and what America seeks to do with these people, which is to destroy their cultural identity and have them sign up for the American way of life, which most of us have also done. We are seeking, we are working, we are sacrificing to get this message to you. We know, and you can see, you're not blind. And when I say you here in this instance, I'm referring to you who are not aware specifically of the teachings of the Lost Foundation of Islam. The Lost Foundation of Islam is responsible for there being a way out for us, a salvation for us. That salvation lies within our invoking our legal right to self-determination. The legal right to self-determination is international law. In order for us to receive the benefits or invoke our legal right or take advantage of the legal right to self-determination, we have to have elements in place that are required to have standing in the International Court of Justice. The work done by the Honorable Silas Muhammad as a result of having been taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the message that he delivered, which was a result of him being taught by Master Farad Muhammad, a human being, man, flesh and blood, who came here from Mecca, Arabia, and taught us the truth about ourselves and set in motion the fall of America. And that message of the fall of America is contained in a book by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad by the title, The Fall of America. This book was published in 1973. And when we look at the devastation that has been occurring with the storms that have been plaguing the United States, it really read from his book of 1973, overlapping what is occurring in Asheville, North Carolina specifically, and the surrounding towns around Asheville, North Carolina, as well as Florida, West Virginia, Georgia, and South Carolina. There has been devastation from these storms all over the country, all over the southeastern United States. And in his book, The Four Great Judgments, and if you'll allow me to read from it, or bear with me, it reads like he was saying exactly what occurred in Asheville well before its occurrence. And there's an element of it that we're going to emphasize today because it was not a part of the news 2 weeks ago. It is front and center today. I have a video that I could show you to help you see this. But before we get there, let's just review again what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had to say in his warning to us. We tell you he is a messenger of Allah and the last and greatest messenger of Allah. But as a messenger of Allah, he is also known as a warner. What is it that we needed to be warned about? He talks about the four great judgments of America in Fall of America. To be plagued with too much rain will destroy property and lives, as we have seen with the devastating hurricanes Helene and Milton. It swells the rivers and creeks. Now I saw video where there was a very cute little creek that flowed behind this couple's home. And they were sitting outside, and the creek started getting bigger and wider. And before they knew it, it grew so fast that they found themselves trapped and couldn't leave. The water rose that high, but it started out as a pleasant little creek that flowed behind their home. It swells the rivers and creeks. Too much rain floods cities and towns. Large bodies of water at the ocean shorelines will be made to swell with unusually high waves, dumping billions of tons. Billions of tons? A ton is 2,000 pounds. Billions of tons is billions of tons of water over the now seashore line, implying that the seashore line might be a little different afterwards, but billions of tons of water went through Asheville, North Carolina, and some of the outlying towns and literally destroyed complete towns, wiped them off the map. Rain destroys property and kills cattle by drowning them in lowlands. Rain destroys the hiding places of vicious beasts and reptiles, bringing them out fighting in small towns, in people's homes and farms. And I believe I showed a video where a couple came home after the hurricane to check on their home. And when they opened their front door, there was a large alligator in the living room. Rain weakens and destroys railroads, truck line beds, and bridges. Rain undermines foundations of all types of buildings. Rain makes the atmosphere too heavy with moisture, causing sickness. This is the element, the rain causing sickness, that wasn't present when we reported on this 2 weeks ago. This is a slow rolling process. Wind with rain can bring destruction to towns and cities, bringing various germs, causing sickness to the people. It produces unclean water by swelling of streams and destroying reservoirs of pure drinking water used for the health of the people. Rain is a destructive army within itself. Rain is a destructive army. Listen to that language. A destructive army. In other words, it's a tool of war. And that is what's going on. The war of Armageddon. The war between God and the devil. God wants the mind of his people, his chosen people, who were to meet a very specific criteria. This specific criteria is that you'll find it in both Genesis and in the book of Acts. In Genesis chapter 15, verse 13, and I know it, I can just quote it. I don't need to read it to you. It says, to God speaking to Abram, it was before his name was changed to Abraham. Know of a surety that thy seed, which means his descendants, shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. Afterward, that nation whom they shall serve will I judge. This is God speaking. Afterwards, they shall come out with great substance. This is reparations in the form and manner that we choose, not in the form and manner that he chooses, meaning the defendant when we take this to trial in the international court. In the book of Acts, chapter 7, verse 6, it says God spoke, or it used the archaic language spake, S-P-A-K-E, but it means spoke. God spoke on this wise, that his seed, now we're talking about God's seed, or God's children, or God's descendants, shall sojourn in a strange land and be brought into bondage and entreated evil 400 years. Afterwards, that nation shall be judged, and they will come and serve me in this place. So both books, the Old Testament and the New Testament, speak about Abraham's descendants and God's descendants going through slavery or bondage in a strange land for 400 years, and afterwards leaving that land. In the Old Testament, it says with great substance. In the New Testament, it says to come and serve me in this place, as opposed to serving the devil in that place. Where did this information come from? How did we get the news and the awareness, the theology that we practice and study and understand these scriptures to be meaning? It is from a human being, a flesh and blood man by the name of Master Farad Muhammad. He came to North America by himself. He came with the specific purpose in mind to restore the lost, found nation of Islam, the tribe of Shabazz, the God tribe, who had been lost from the knowledge of themselves, to restore us to our original position of leadership over the earth. We were told that there would not be peace anywhere on the earth until we are restored to our position, that there would be wars and rumors of wars. Isn't that what we see today? Earthquakes, storms. The forces of nature would be the weapons of Allah used to free us from our captivity. This knowledge, this history that we teach, it's not a history that is taught in Western society. You cannot get this from Great Britain, Germany, France, or the United States of America. This is not a part of their scholarship, if you will, their knowledge, their understanding. And if it were, they absolutely would not share it with us. In fact about it, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told us that if his enemy was coming to destroy him and they were at his shores, he would not tell us until we could see them. He also said about us that the fire would be on our heel before we would submit to the truth. Our desire is to do our best to help you alleviate much of that pain and suffering, waiting until it's too late and having to run from the fire for your salvation. Don't do that. It's time now. We are here now. We have the truth today. We have been fulfilling the prophecies as they have been written. When Master Farad Muhammad came, he taught the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and many others who would be at the meetings. He taught and gave name to over 11,000 people in the 3.5 years, or from 1930 to 1934. That's a lot of people. And among them, all of those people that he taught and the temple structure that he set in place, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was the one that he spoke to face, night and day, 3.5 years, as is prophesied in the book of Revelation. In fact, let me pull that out for you to look at. He said, if I can, I believe it's Revelation 12. Where it says that he prepared a place for the woman and fed her there. And it gave the amount of time. And if you do the math on the amount of time, it comes to 3 years, 3.4 years. The Honorable Elijah, I don't see it. It's not where I thought it was. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that he was taught directly by Master Farad Muhammad night and day for 3 years and 4 months. We are, or these scriptures, both the Bible and the Holy Quran, are talking about us. They are about us, most of the book. Master Farad Muhammad provided the Honorable Elijah Muhammad with everything that he would need to overcome every obstacle to our success as a nation in those 3 years and 4 months. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad provided the answer to every problem we would have, every obstacle we would face, every decision we would need to make in his writings to us, so that we would be prepared with everything that we would need for success. And we are. We have in the Nation of Islam an excellent example of what would happen when we come to unity. And speaking about coming to unity, I spent a day in Hampton, Virginia this week. After visiting my mother in Richmond, Virginia, we had a great time together. I then went down to Hampton, Virginia to visit an old friend that I hadn't seen in many years. And while I was there, and this friend is a retired professor, a university professor. So, you know, when you're dealing with intellectuals, they always have a lot of information and knowledge around. And she started telling me the history of Hampton. And she had a book on this history, and I read this book while I was there. Hampton is where the first that first group of 20 slaves that they said were first brought here in 1619 were brought to the United States of America. And I stood and took a picture in front of the placard where the first slaves landed, according to the history they taught, according to the history that Master Farad Muhammad taught, which has been verified. The first slaves were brought here in 1555 on April 1st by a slaver by the name of Sir John Hawkins of England. He brought us here on 3 ships, one of them named Jesus. But the history we have been taught in school is that our first, oh, I see brother is here. Okay. We spoke about our brother Shahid. Pardon me for interrupting my trail of thought. I'll come back to it. Brother Shahid said that we should get an updated report from Minister Musa Fardan, who lives in Asheville and can give us an update on what's going on. And he only has a few minutes to share with us. So, brother, if you can turn on, and he's here with us now. So, brother, if you can turn on your microphone and your camera, if you can turn on your camera, please do. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, sir. I'm here. I'm here. I can see if I can get. I'm working right now, but I can see if I can get my.
Okay. Well, if you can get it, that would be nice. If you can't, it's okay. We can take a report from you.
Okay.
Just an audio report if you like.
Yeah. I'm trying to get it. I don't think it's going to come up, the camera. I'm trying to get it up, and it's not coming up, but I had an audio.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You and I talked a couple of days ago. I was telling you of what I was learning about the conditions in Asheville concerning the water and the soot and what is going on now. Why don't you give us an update as one of the first responders on what it is that you're seeing and experiencing?
Yes, sir. First of all, I want to thank you, Minister Jabbar, and your staff for inviting me once again to give an update on what is happening here. As the last time we spoke, things were pretty it's still in a crisis, mode, but it's kind of calmed down somewhat in the city area. People is going back to somewhat norm. The people do have running water, do have electricity. There's still a boil your water advisory because the water is still not as clean as it would need to be, to consume for human consumption. The reservoir, they're checking it. They check it daily, 24/7, and they treating it with all kinds of, chlorine and whatever to try and clean the water up. But it's still crisis around. There are some areas that still are without water, that are without power. It's still just total devastation all around, everywhere you look. And as we spoke yesterday, and you did brief me on some things that I hadn't even seen because I'm here, so they're keeping a lot of things away from the public here, out of fear of just total chaos getting breaking out. So they the sites that you sent, that the video that you sent me, I did take a look at that. We had a chance to take a look at it, and those sites that were on there, I have been to a couple of those sites, so I bear witness that what you've seen and what you're speaking of, it is the truth. There are a lot of things that are going on here that they're not telling the general public. There are, like you say, septic tanks that have been floated up out of the ground, sewage, that have spilled out into the rivers. Wells have been destroyed contaminated. For those that don't know how a well works, a well is drilled. You drill as deep as you can go until you hit a channel of water. And when you hit that channel of water, you have water. And because you drill so deep that you try to avoid the surface, contaminations. But due to this storm and the severity of it, I mean, it just saturated the ground so much. The water had its force, and it got into the channels. So the contamination, the people can't use the wells anymore. So they can't drill. They have no water. They have to bring water in. So this is an ongoing thing, and it's going to be ongoing. You still had a residue of mud. You have possibly body parts that are still inside of all of that has not been able to been sorted through, and all of this is laying out. You even have some of it laying in the city parts wherever the river was at. The river banks may have come out and spread it 3 football fields wide. That's just how far along the river banks that it come out. So you still have all of this mud debris, and once it's dried up, you can when you go through it, you can, if you let your window down, you can smell it. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
You have to you are warned to required to wear a mask if you're a first responder in those areas. So whenever I go through there, I am protected. But then you have disease that's coming, that's breaking out. Some of those camps that you showed that was sitting up on the side of the riverbanks, those are some of those places that, and as you said, those sundown towns, that's what they got hit. A lot of them got washed away. So, that's all that they do have, so, who knows if FEMA is how much money they have to support them. So, there's a crisis here. And it could get worse if it becomes a health issue.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
One of the reports I saw, and I do have a video, I may share it. It said that the water was contaminated and that there was a person who drank some of the water and died as a result. They said that horses were eating the hay.
Yes, sir.
And in the water, and then wasn't, and now is up above ground. And that horses ate the hay and died. There was a report that there was 10 cadaver dogs that were going through the mud and soot searching for bodies. And at the end of one day of searching, 4 of the dogs died and the other 6 were dying. That the mud and soot was creating acid burns on people's skin, that the water and mud was contaminated with sewage from the sewage plant because 2 or 3 of the tanks got washed away from the major sewage facility. People's septic tanks got washed down the stream, that chemical plants and the chemicals in the plants got washed away into the stream, and even a nuclear waste plant.
Yes, sir.
Product got washed down the stream. Have you had any experience with that, or can you give any report on those?
Well, I can give you a report on what I have heard and what I know to be true. Now some of the horses and the cadaver dogs and so on. Once I get a report on that here, I can give you an accurate report on that, as that occurrence. But I do know that the chemical plants that you spoke about, the containers and so on, in those locations, they do exist. They do exist here. And people are beginning to talk amongst themselves about some of those occurrences that you're spoken of. A lot of the, as I said, the sewer plant is located downstream of Asheville. So a lot of the people that was in the counties downstream, they are getting hit pretty bad by all of the sewage, from the sewage plant. The water being, contamination of water is is those wells that we talked about. People having, drilling wells because the ground is so saturated with chemicals and waste that it's getting into the wells. It's not safe to drill the wells anymore. Now the reservoir for the city drinking water, it comes through the reservoir, and they have made a bypass around that because it comes through the pipes and so on. So they're trying to treat that day by day. But from what I heard here, it's going to be some months. It's going to be some months before that water is conditioned enough to where one would be able to drink it. And out of fear, I don't think the people I don't even think they would even want to drink it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I will check, as I said, and maybe I can give you a final, another report on down the line about those things that you spoke of.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know, I just want to say, Minister Jabbar, that everything that you said, that you read, bearing witness from that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that he wrote in the fall of America, and that you spoke of today, I bear witness. I'm on the ground. I see it. I see it. I see bridges that have snapped, massive slabs of concrete that's just snapped off and laying on the riverbanks. It's just it's when I read Message to the Black Man and I hear you speak about it, everything you said today is, I bear witness that this Message to the Black Man, it's like it's right now. It was a warning to us that this was going to happen.
Yes,
and
sir.
It is happening. It's happening. And this is just the beginning.
Oh no.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I had a little technical difficulty here on my end. I apologize, my.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But I thank you again for giving me the opportunity to bring a firsthand report. And maybe the next time, if I'm allowed to, welcome back on your meeting, I will see if I can get my phone and get everything on my audio, get all of that together, and see if I can get video on the scene, because it's going to be a long time before they clear this up. There are still cars that are submerged in the mud, in the river. Don't know if there's bodies inside of them because the water is still running there. No one has attempted to pull them out yet. So
Right.
Those cars have chemicals in them. They have transmission fluid, power steering fluid, brake fluid, antifreeze. It's going to be a long time. It's dangerous here.
Yes. And it's going to be for quite some time, as you pointed out.
Yes, sir.
In terms of you coming back, you're welcome anytime, brother. You're always welcome. In fact, one of the things that I am seeking to do going forward is to invite other representatives of the Honorable Silas Muhammad to present views and ideas about what it is that we are striving to achieve with our people.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That is a great idea. Yes, sir. But thank you again, sir.
Yes, sir. And I'm going to show a portion. It's a very long video. I'm not going to show the whole thing, but I am going to show a video of what's going on right now. The same one that I shared with you.
Yes, sir.
Right now. So I'll share this with you on the screen. Here it is.
Yes, sir.
That we're sitting in the flood.
There's cattle lifestyles up here, people raising beef, horses, every bit of hay. You'll drive down the road and see round bales of hay. Oh, they're good to go. No, it's no good. It can't be used.
Even Madison County Chamber of Commerce has now put up a warning on their official website that the mud in Marshall, North Carolina, just for one example, is absolutely toxic that they have hazardous material protocols now in effect.
Downtown Marshall, North Carolina was swallowed by catastrophic flooding. Now what remains is covered in a thick coat of mud and debris that's considered hazardous.
Some of the volunteers that are starting to come in here are having to wear hazmat suits because all of the mud and all the debris is now considered to be hazardous.
And that everyone should be using caution anywhere where there is mud or water. It says an abundance of solvents or caustic chemicals is eating people's clothing, and that people are getting chemical burns from coming into contact with this mud, and that it's contaminated with household chemicals, fuel oils, gas, animal and human waste, trash. They're saying there's syringes in there, garden chemicals, pesticides, all kinds of stuff is now in this mud. And they're saying PPE is now mandated for working with it, including respirators. Don't go in the mud, use caution and avoid floodwater and mud unless absolutely vital. So there's a secondary issue that is now developing here, and it's also making people ill. I have people writing me who know people that are working in Lake Lure that are getting sick. There are messages being posted on Facebook groups about people coming down with respiratory illnesses and pneumonia-like illnesses that are not pneumonia, and they're having lung pain. I don't think people realize how toxic, how absolutely toxified this area is.
And you can see how deep it is to the altar.
For 24 hours, 4 to 5 feet of water flowed through the church before receding.
I'm sick,
Yeah.
but I'm not. I mean, I have some allergies going on. And I have some like internal stuff.
Yeah.
Like I felt like I had food poisoning, but it's been long enough that if I had food poisoning, it'd be past. And my husband's the same way, and I'm convinced we got bacteria or something from somewhere.
I've been sick since it started, like with an infection, lymph nodes and stuff, it won't go away.
I mean, but like you drive down the roads, like want to know in Old Port. I mean, it's a dust bowl. It's a dust bowl, and they think how many of those homes have asbestos in them?
Yeah.
The insulation.
There's potentially a huge environmental disaster happening in Asheville, North Carolina, and everyone downriver. This is reportedly the IPEX plastic PVC factory. Everything looks to be destroyed, and chemicals have been leaked into the French Broad River.
It's probably the PVC, the powder form.
This is the only disaster I've ever worked. I've been doing this since Hurricane Katrina. It's the only one I've ever worked that the federal government is actively working against recovery. This one completely different. They're actively working against the recovery process, which tells me they've got something to hide.
And Bear from the internet, he's from Grindstone Ministries. They were one of the links I put for people to donate in the pinned comment under this series of videos. He did an interview with Billy Bond, who's a permaculture guy, just a couple of days ago. And I think everybody just needs to hear what this man is saying about what is going on with this mud in this area.
And I believe that they do have something to hide, because we're already getting reports, firsthand reports of cadaver dogs that are dying, that we're walking through these areas, especially in your neck of the woods, walking through the silt, walking through the muck, even going through decon afterwards, being decontaminated. I've got reports. One guy had 10 dogs there, and 4 of his dogs are already dead, and the other 6 are dying. Got another woman, firsthand account, that was rescuing horses, leading horses through the muck and the mud in the river. And the horses are so incredibly sick that they started doing blood tests on the horses. And the tests that have been coming back are, in their words, literally off the charts. They've never seen anything like this before. Citizens, the last report I got in your area was 50 to 60 people in Western North Carolina that are already inexplicably sick. And by inexplicably, I mean, they don't know what's wrong with them. And the reason for that is all kinds of has washed into that river. Literal human feces from septic tanks that were ruptured, wastewater treatment plants, thousands of cadavers, even though the official reporting is that it's only 213 dead. Well, that conflicts with one coroner that I personally spoke with that had 1,200 people in reefer trailers. Then you've got dead animals, NFS, Nuclear Fuel Services, that lost, the official reporting is they lost training barrels. Well, we spoke to the former training manager at NFS who said, nope, those aren't training barrels, those are live barrels.
Wow.
And officially the number was, well, it's just one live barrel. Then it was 5 live barrels. And it was a semi-load, 250 55-gallon drums. And we know because the semi was found and documented under 10 foot of mud. So you've got nuclear fuel or waste fuels. You also have the facility at NFS. They said they lost a pole barn in the flooding. They didn't. They lost a 10,000 square foot decontamination unit and all the contaminated parts and all the decontamination equipment washed into the river. Then you've got a PVC plant. You've got multiple concrete plants, all of which washed into the river. There are hundreds of homes that should be condemned. And I'm not for the government condemning people's homes. These people do not need to be mucking out their homes. They don't need to be pulling out the insulation and the drywall down to bare studs and airing it out and starting over again because the silt is deadly. The silt will kill you. And FEMA has been slow rolling this, and in conjunction with local and state emergency management, has been slow rolling the announcement that, hey, the silt will kill you, because they want to cover up what will likely be a massive conglomeration of giant lawsuits.
So I need to interject here because I just think some of the stories that are coming out right now in the wake of this hurricane are so odd. Like immediately they're telling everyone everything is fine. And I don't know how they could really know that. Case in point, you heard him talk about Nuclear Fuel Services. Nuclear Fuel Services is a company that sits basically 0.2 miles away from the Nolichucky River. It's like right there in Erwin, Tennessee, on the river. It's a major supplier of fuel for the U.S. Navy's nuclear-powered fleet, and it has been since the 1960s. However, back in 2021, they received a $57.5 million grant to reprocess weapons-grade uranium into nuclear reactor fuel. So that's what's been going on right there on the Nolichucky River in Erwin, Tennessee for several years now. And apparently 13 days ago, somebody in the r/radiation subreddit posted this picture of a barrel reportedly found in the French Broad River in Asheville, North Carolina. And the barrel says B&W Y12 LLC, Oak Ridge, Tennessee, radioactive material on it. And so a week ago, you have this story coming out of WBIR TV Knoxville. No, this barrel reportedly found in an Asheville River did not contain radioactive waste. Although at one time, it technically actually did, just not supposedly at the time that it went into this river. So what this debunking story claims is that, yes, this actually is a barrel that originated in the Y12 National Security Complex in the Oak Ridge, Tennessee facilities that process uranium. And yes, some of these barrels did end up in Erwin at Nuclear Fuel Services. And yes, they were kept in a warehouse off-site that was actually heavily damaged in the floods, resulting in some NFS property being carried away by floodwater, but it's just empty, clean containers and training equipment and protective equipment. And even though it says fissile radioactive material on this barrel's empty and clean. And so it's fine. It's basically what it says. It's basically this, yes, but no, it's fine. Everything's fine. Don't worry about it. And I just think it's interesting how quickly they were saying everything is totally fine with this facility. So the timeline on this storm in Western North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee is that it moved in.
I'm going to cut this off here. There's much more information that I would like for you to see, but I don't want to. You can look up the video. It's what's going on now in North Carolina. They spoke about a waste treatment plant. And if you've seen the waste treatment plants in most major cities, it's these really large round tanks. This facility had 5 large waste treatment tanks, and 2 of them got washed into the river, and the others were severely damaged. So, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said about what you can expect from the sickness, he says that, rain makes the atmosphere heavy with moisture, causing sickness. The rain can bring destruction to towns and cities, bringing various germs, causing sickness to the people. The people are now becoming very sick from the result of the rain. Why do we put so much emphasis on this? And are we praying for the fall of America? Do we want to see this occur right now? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad made the statement that every day that this can be delayed, we should be thankful for. Because as our brother, well, I don't think he said it in the report on this presentation, but in our conversation yesterday, he told me that there were quite a few Black people who were caught up in this devastation. There was one family that lost 11 family members in one fell swoop. There were family members who were in their houses or on the roofs of their houses, and the houses got washed down the river, and they were on the river floating. One husband and wife were in the house, and the house got caught up in the flood, and they got out. And then the house hit something, and they fell into the water. And he was able to grab a hold of a tree or a pole and survive, but never seen his wife again. It is really, really devastating. It is really terrible. It is not something that we want our people to experience. So we come before you trying to show you that here is a man who gave his life for you, his entire life, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Once he came in contact with Master Farad Muhammad, he committed his life to us. He sacrificed his life for us that we might have the opportunity that we have before us now. But because the war of Armageddon is a spiritual war, we are fighting for the minds of our people. The white man knows, the children of our enslavers know that they must hold on to us like you hold on to a hostage. We are held as prey. As long as he keeps us convinced that we can have salvation with him, then we voluntarily cling to him. And our clinging to him causes us to contradict the admonition I read to you at the beginning that we find in the book of Revelations. Come out of her, my people. Be not partakers in her plagues. What America has done, America has done. And just like you and I, we have to bear the consequences of our action and deal with justice when it's imposed on us. They too have to bear the consequences of their actions and deal with the justice being imposed on them by Allah, or as many of you would like to say, by our ancestors. And I think I said or shared with you when I first heard that being repeated by multiple members of our community. At first, it affected me a little negatively because I'm not a believer in life after death. Physical life after physical death, there's no life. The resurrection of the dead that we have been taught about in religion is not a physical death that we're being resurrected from. We're being resurrected from a mental death. We are a people who belonged to a nation. We had a society, a civilization. We were existing and prospering where we were. And we were captured, taken from our nation. And the first ones that were brought here, the women who were pregnant when their children were born, those children were taken from those women and raised by the white man or raised on the white plantations away from their parents so that they could not be taught anything about themselves and their history. So we are a people who are completely cut off from our original language, our original culture, our original religion or way of life. And when you are that completely and totally cut off from yourself, you are considered mentally dead, dead to the knowledge of who you or we are. And you can be resurrected from mental death, and we are now being resurrected from mental death. And the objective that we, the Lost Foundation of Islam, and now the Afro-descendant nation have, is to wake you up, bring you to the reality nobody is coming to save us. I have had it reported to me by one of my brothers that in a recent presentation by Minister Louis Farrakhan, that he has expressed that there is no salvation for us utilizing the United Nations. That's disappointing to hear. And I can't say that I guarantee that we're going to be successful with the United Nations. I do know that international law has some specific elements in place. And like America is being judged, the UN may also be being judged. For if they have human rights apparatus in place and the legal right to self-determination in place, and they don't imply that or apply that to us, then they're not living up to their own principles and they are being judged also. But the structure is in place for us to use. What brother has suggested that we do is pray to Allah for salvation. That sounds like believing in something other than a man. And one of my favorite subjects is history. And I've read the history of the fall and rise of different nations. And I've never read the history of one where a supernatural spirit God or mystery God came and waved his hand and these people had a nation. Now, the belief in a supernatural God has been the impetus for the establishment of many nations. But the people believing that God was behind their actions took action, human beings. And we have to do the same. So for one of our leaders to come before us and say, well, what we need to do is pray to Allah and wait, that to me, well, it goes against the actual teachings of Islam. For you who are members of the Nation of Islam, you know we have our lessons. But many of you who are not members of the Nation of Islam are not aware of our lessons. We have a lesson that says, will you sit up home and wait on a mystery God to provide you food? The answer, emphatically no. Me and my people have tried this so-called mystery God for bread, clothing, and a home, and received nothing but hunger, naked, hard times, and out of doors. And no relief came to us until the Son of Man came to our aid in the name of our prophet, W.D. Farad. So right there in this lesson, will you sit at home and wait for a mystery God? Emphatically no. Well, Minister Louis Farrakhan has that lesson. Yet he told his followers, we will pray to Allah for our salvation and wait on him. I don't want to wait on a mystery God. I want you, God, he and she, to join us, and let's get together and establish this for ourselves. I went on. I've been spending a little time experimenting with AI, and I'm asking AI quite a few questions. And one of the questions that I asked AI was to do a comparison contrast between the reparations received by the state of Israel and the reparations received by the native Indians. Let me give you a little bit of it says land plays a crucial role in reparative justice and the broader context of restitution and sovereignty for dispossessed people. We Afro-descendants are dispossessed of our original homeland, Africa. We are here in the United States of America as a subject people. We've discussed this before. So it's telling us that the significance of land varies between the creation of an independent state of Israel and the establishment of land reservations for the Native American tribes in the United States. Here is a breakdown of the role land has played in these two contexts. And I use this or bring this up because the Native Indians received their reparations as a result of the establishment in 1948 of the Indian Claims Commission by the U.S. Congress. The Jewish people received their reparations as a result of the Jewish people bringing forward a claim, the Zionist movement. So the Native Americans did not go to the U.S. government seeking reparations. The U.S. government formed the Indians Claims Commission and went to the Indians to provide them with reparations. I asked ChatGPT if the Indian Claims Commission's purpose was the wholesale termination of the Native Americans and their desire to establish themselves as a nation again. ChatGPT told me no, but then gave a list of the things that occurred, to which I responded, and I talk with ChatGPT like it's a human being and I'm asking questions. It responded with that, and I asked the question, well, based on your response, the result of them receiving their reparations in the form of payment and staying subject people to the United States, it did destroy the idea of them becoming an independent nation, didn't it? And ChatGPT agreed. So the comparison of the two forms of reparations. And since we are discussing this topic right now in our society, California has a reparations commission in place. The reparations commission is similar to the bill HR 40, which we'll be discussing on Tuesday. The reparations commission was appointed by the governor. They were to bring forth recommendations for legislation to the California legislature. They uncovered much evidence in support of our receiving reparations, put their recommendations to the state legislature, and the state legislature did not even consider them and did not take any action, which led to heated protests in Sacramento at the capital of California. Again, back to the comparison and contrast between the Indians and the state of Israel. Historical and cultural significance. The establishment of the state of Israel was deeply rooted in historical, cultural, and religious ties to the land, which had been central to Jewish identity for thousands of years, they claim. After World War II, the creation of Israel was seen as a necessary response to the Holocaust and need for a homeland for the Jewish people. The reparative role and protective role. The formation of Israel provided a place where Jewish survivors and displaced persons could rebuild their lives in a sovereign state that they controlled. The state of Israel was not only a form of reparations, but also a sanctuary that offered security, autonomy, and self-determination. Isn't that what we want? The political and diplomatic efforts. The land for Israel was established through a combination of historical claims, international agreements, subsequent conflicts. This led to the formation of an independent state where Jewish people could exercise self-governance and protect their culture and religious heritage. Receiving land in the form of an independent state allowed Jewish people to assert national sovereignty, to develop their own laws and governance structure, and create a place that supported their long-term survival and growth. It was not just land, but a reconstitution of national identity and political power. Now we're going to compare that to the land in the form of reservations for the Native American tribes, or the Native Indian tribes, as they prefer to be called. Native Indian tribes were forcibly removed from their ancestral land during colonization and expansion by European settlers and later the U.S. government. The land designated for reservations was often a fraction of the tribe's original territories, and in many cases was less fertile and strategically disadvantageous. Reservations were created as a form of restitution to provide Native tribes with a place to live and exercise limited self-governance. However, this land was not truly returned in the sense of full autonomy. It was allocated and managed under the oversight of the U.S. government through treaties that were often violated or poorly enforced. Although reservations allowed for some level of self-governance, the tribe's rights to manage these lands have been historically restricted. The U.S. government retained control over significant aspects of reservation life, including resources, laws, and economic development, limiting true autonomy. Land holds profound cultural and spiritual importance to Native tribes. Reservations help maintain some cultural continuity, but the fragmentation and reduction of land holdings weakened many tribes' cultural and social structures. While some tribes have gained significant rights over their land through legal and political efforts, many still face economic challenges, poverty, and limited access to essential services. The reservation system has been criticized for its failure to provide adequate compensation or empowerment to Native communities. Yet they've received reparations. They've been paid $818 million in reparations, and this just said they are experiencing poverty. Nature of land ownership and sovereignty. It says land became an independent and sovereign state, the state of Israel. The land became an independent and sovereign state, giving Jewish people full control over their government, economy, and international affairs. This sovereignty allowed for self-determination and long-term development. Native American reservations, while reservations gave natives certain rights to land, they did not provide full sovereignty. The U.S. government maintained significant oversight and restrictions limiting the tribe's self-determination, security, and autonomy. The establishment of Israel created a homeland where Jewish people could exercise complete political and social autonomy and build their state in a way that ensured their collective security and prosperity. Reservations have some degree of self-government, but remain subject to federal laws and policies. Their holdings are often insufficient for economic independence or fully supporting cultural revitalization. Now, we are seeking reparation as a people, as the Afro-descendant nation. In order for us to achieve reparations in the manner and form that we like, we have to put ourselves into position to invoke our international right to self-determination, as is outlined in the first article of the UN Charter and in Article 27 of the ICCPR, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. And in order for us to do that, we have to first recognize ourselves as a nation of people. And with the state of Israel, they had the Zionist movement. Not all Jewish people were for the establishment of the state of Israel, but enough of them was supportive of it and sacrificing for it to bring it about. We need that same activity among ourselves. And we, the Muslims, we have demonstrated the highest level of unity and self-reliance of any organized body of slave descendants in the United States or anywhere else that I am aware of. The result of the work of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad produced as independent a people as we could be, while still living on another man's land, or metaphorically speaking, in another man's house. We live in the United States of America. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, in calling for reparations and what the Muslim want, number 4, asks that we be allowed to establish ourselves on a separate state or territory within the United States or elsewhere. In the book, The Fall of America, he teaches or has a section, Land of Our Own and Qualifications. He said the true solution to our problem is human rights. We are on the correct course, on the correct path. There's only one thing that we are lacking. We are lacking the support of Afro-descendant people. It is because you still believe that your salvation can be found in the white man's crooked and corrupt politics. We have been taught and told that those of you who believe that are as far wrong as the distance from the east to the west. So it's time to come to a maturity. It doesn't happen overnight. The United States of America was first, or this territory was first colonized by the French, the Spanish, and the English, and I believe some others, as early as the 1500s. But it wasn't until 1776 that they matured to the level necessary to decide to establish self-governance. Master Farad Muhammad made himself known July 4th, 1930. So it has now been near 100 years. We're 6 years short of 100 years since the coming of Master Farad Muhammad. And just like the citizens who ultimately matured and formed the United States of America had to grow and develop to that level, we too have to do the same. It's not going to take us as long as it took them, but we have to grow and mature to that level. And this brings me back to the story I was going to tell you earlier about Hampton, Virginia, when our brother came on the line and I knew he only had a few minutes. The story was inspiring. The history was inspiring to me. And I'm going to give it to you from memory, from having read the book on Monday. But when the state of Virginia, or portions of the state of Virginia, succeeded from the United States of America and formed one of the Confederate States, 3 slaves escaped slavery on the Confederate side to Fort Monroe. The military officer in charge of Fort Monroe decided not to send these slaves back to their slaveholders as directed by the Fugitive Slave Act, because they are now at war with the Confederacy. And if you send the slaves back, then those slaves' labor will be used by the Confederate States against the Union Army. So he didn't send them back. Instead, he gave them refuge inside of Fort Monroe. This word got out among the slaves, and after just a short time, thousands of slaves escaped the Confederacy to Fort Monroe. Fort Monroe became known as Freedom Fort. And the Union Army, they now have taken these slaves in. And I got ahead of myself. The Hampton Institute, or Hampton University that exists today, at that time was called Hampton Agriculture Normal or Agriculture School. And the slaves that were escaping to Freedom Fort, Fort Monroe, were living at the Hampton agricultural and normal college campus. The Caucasians who were running the school had gone to the fort. When the Confederate Army found out that the slaves were escaping there and staying at the college, which was across the river from the fort, or across a narrow waterway, they destroyed and burned down all of the buildings on the campus. The slaves were so resourceful that they built what they called shanties on the ruins of the buildings from the campus. So all of the fireplaces that were left and the foundations that were left, they built structures around and made homes for themselves. The structures were so solid and so stable and so secure that the Union officers confiscated their newly built shanty homes so that the officers could use them to live in at the fort. This support that the Union gave the slaves, now the freedmen, they called them freedmen, and they also called them contraband of war. So they called themselves freedmen. The Union Army called them contrabands. And the contrabands began to work and assist the Union Army, and in exchange, the Union Army supplied them with some of the necessities for survival. Then a couple of black military regiments were formed. The blacks were serving as agents, reporting on Confederate troop movement and things that the Confederates were doing and reporting back to the Union. And in exchange, the Union did things for them. And as a result, Hampton University was developed. One of the Union officers was the first executive over the school. And so Hampton became a small black enclave, and they had a lot of photographs in the book. They were well-dressed, suits and ties. The ladies were dressed like ladies. They had businesses. They were graduating from Hampton. So they had educations. They started schools. They started hospitals. They had the Freedmen's Bureau and the Freedmen's Bank, and they were taking care of this. They were getting down. They were successful. And that story inspired me because they were able to come together and achieve that level of success fresh off the plantation. I mean, they literally escaped the Confederate States, came to the Union side through emancipation, and then established Freedmen's Town and the Freedmen's Bureau. They became politicians during Reconstruction, etc. Hampton University became one of the most prominent of the traditionally black colleges. And I'm told today that the population of Hampton, Virginia is approximately 50% black. I haven't been to another place in America where the population was 50% black, not a major city. I lived in Compton. It was 80% black. Oh, I take that back. When I got to Detroit in 1996, the population of Detroit was about 85% black. But that was Detroit proper. It wasn't the metro area. The metro area was like all of the metro areas of all the other cities. They just all left Detroit to us. So it was a good history. There's much more to it. I didn't prepare to share the story. It's an inspirational story for me. And the reason it inspired me is because it showed me what kind of success we achieved in unity with each other, with almost nothing. Today, we are doctors, we are lawyers, we're engineers, we're politicians, we are clergy of every possible ilk, we are entrepreneurs, we are electricians, we are farmers, we are ranchers. We have the knowledge of every single thing that the United States of America is good at. And we do it better because it was a requirement that we be better than them just to get the job. And it is typical for us to train our supervisors and managers. So we do what America does better than America. We are trained and skilled in every capacity that this country functions under. We have already had a Black president. So when I look at the success of Hampton, when I look at the success of Black Wall Street, Rosewood, Oscarville, Georgia, these towns that have been destroyed, this Black progress that was destroyed, verifying the words of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, where he said that the white man means absolutely no good for us. All of his offers of friendship are insincere. Now, I'm not speaking about individuals. You may know an individual Caucasian who has been good to you, who has helped you, who has done some good and has done it sincerely. I know Ida Hakeem. I know Ida Hakeem did some good. I know she did it sincerely. And I know some others, and you do too. I'm not talking about the individuals you know. The individuals that you know have no power to prevent or have not exercised any power, if they have, to prevent or change what the power that control America are imposing on us. The powers, the governing body of this country have no good in their heart for us. The political parties are not seeking equal justice for us. We have to do that for ourselves. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, peace be upon him, he taught us that the resurrection of Jesus, it means the resurrection of justice for us. And the only way that we are going to receive justice is to invoke our international legal right to self-determination. And the plagues that you see coming upon America in the form of rain, hail, snow, and earthquakes, drought, famine, and fire, the destruction of her education system, the confusion of the minds in her political system, the decline of her dollar, all of that you can avoid. And the only way you can avoid it is to join on to your own kind and accept your own and do for yourself what every other man or woman on earth do for themselves. We have to do it. We cannot delegate it to anyone else. and there's no one coming to save us. We have to save ourselves. So we appeal to you who are descendants of plantation slavery to come and join on to the Afro-descendant nation. I remember a message by the Honorable Silas Muhammad in the Chicken Wing Talk back in 2019, where he made the statement that the name Afro-descendant is the name that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Master Farad Muhammad discussed in 1930. The Afro-descendant nation is the structure by which we can give life to our nation and invoke our international right to self-determination. That for those of you who are interested in getting information about or applying for membership in the Afro-descendant nation, you can go to afrodescendant.org. Afrodescendant.org. Fill out your application and it'll go through the process. You'll receive a letter once you have been vetted, whatever method of vetting is occurring. I'm not able to speak on that. You then will receive a letter of membership and asked whether or not you want to participate and at what level, so that you can get involved in this work of bringing our people together under a unified action. Thank you very much for tuning in today. I told you that I was preparing a message and got distracted. And so I've kind of given you a little hodgepodge of different things that have been on my mind. I'm working on improving the professionalism associated with these presentations, and making them more inviting and more interesting, and serving you in a way that you can benefit from this information. So again, I thank you. I appreciate your attendance. If you have questions or comments, you can raise those now. We have, for those of you who are in the Zoom room, you can put any questions or comments in the chat. For those of you who are live on Facebook, you can also put a comment in the comments section, and Shahid can convey that to me and we can address it. Brother Shahid, are you there? Can you hear me? Okay, well, when you are able to speak, just come on back in if you have any comments. I see one comment in the chat, it looks like. Well, it looked like I had something in the chat, but I didn't see a question. Well, since we don't have any questions or comments, I'm going to say thank you again. We really appreciate your attendance. We hope that you have received something beneficial. I see Shahid, you coming on?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to get my microphone together there. Yes, sir. There are no chats, but just wanted to salute Senator Mahasan from the Afro-Descendant Nation, Abbasi. I do see your question. Why was I banned from receiving notifications? I'm not sure about that. But please try again. Don't be discouraged from that. Greetings, Seifu Assalam. There's a question, where does the evidence exist that the name Afro-descendant was discussed by Allah and his messenger? That's the question.
The flag of Islam is the answer. Let me see. That's a whole lecture all by itself. And Mr. Muhammad didn't give where it was discussed, but I was able to uncover it and have it confirmed to be accurate. It doesn't say the name Afro-descendant specifically. And I liken it to the birth of a child. We here have the birth of a nation. And in the early years of Mr. Cyrus Muhammad's teaching, he talked about the birth of a nation like the birth of a child. And when the sperm penetrates the egg, the first thing happens is the egg splits into two. And then those two split into four. And then those four split into 8 to 16 to 32, 64, on and on until it dissolved into a liquid. And then we go through the development process to give birth to this nation. Well, in the flag of Islam, it is made clear that we did not know what the name would be for the baby until the baby was born. Like we don't know the name of the birth of our children until the children are born. In my personal history, I wanted my daughter to be named Asia. Her mother and I discussed it. And I told her mother, I want you to name her Asia, to which she agreed. When Asia was born, she was given the name Megan and the middle name Asia. So even though I thought I had in my head what that baby would be called when she was born, it wasn't until she was born that I knew what her name actually was. And likewise, that appears to be the case, or that which is pointed out to us in the flag of America. We don't know what the name's gonna be until the baby's born. And when the baby was born, the baby nation, it was given the name Afro-descendant nation. So to answer your question, they did not specifically say the name Afro-descendant. They specifically said, we really don't know what the name gonna be, but it's gonna have a name. So we're gonna call it this for now, or we're gonna call it that for now. But as I said, that's an entire lecture all to itself. And I hope that satisfies your question for now. And at some point in the future, I will address it more specifically. Any other questions or comments, Brother Shaheed?
No other questions at this time. Thank you, Seifu. Shout out to the New York family. I think that's where you're from, brother. Salute. No, sir. No other questions at this time, sir.
Okay. In that case, we have come upon the time for the end of the meeting. I appreciate your attendance, as I've said. If you have comments or suggestions as to how we can improve what we do, I'm open. I want to bring other ministers on to discuss it. When I talk with some of the other ministers, it's like I'm going to school. And I told one brother that I was speaking with a couple of days ago that the world needs to hear his mind. So hopefully in the future, we will be bringing some of the other ministers to participate in this program, and we may also be changing some of the format of the presentation. But our objective is to get this truth to you so that you can make a intelligent, informed decision in this day of decision that we are now living in. So we thank you for tuning in. We thank Almighty Allah who appeared in the person of Master Farad Muhammad for coming to find us. We thank him for raising up the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, our spiritual mother who sacrificed his entire life for us. And we thank them for the Honorable Cyrus Muhammad. Where would we be if he had not returned and reestablished us? Where would we be? Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.